And welcome back once again, everybody, to New England Sunday. 1990 marks the bicentennial of the census taking here in the United States. We've heard all about its importance in determining the amount of federal grants and funds we'll receive here in Connecticut, but as well as across the nation. But I bet you don't realize that genealogists use it as a research tool as well. Now, joining me to talk about the census as a genealogical tool are Judith Plummer. Nice to have you here, Judith. And Dorothy Armistead from the Connecticut Society of Genealogists. Welcome to New England Sunday. Okay.
Thank you.
You say a genealogist is also a family historian. What is your job? What do you do?
Well, we trace ancestors, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents. You can keep going as far as you want to go because there's no end to it. Mm-hmm. But we find out who they are, what time they lived, what they did for an occupation, where they, how many children they had. The family historian likes to make these people seem like real people that lived in real historical times. And it makes the whole United States history personal for the person who's doing the researching. And I think that's one of the things that really gets to us. You know, it makes the history of our country our own history.
Yeah, it really brings it alive. There's a story to tell. Now, why what is your tool? How do you do this tracing back of people's family histories?
Well, the United States has been taking a census ever since 1790. And although they only paid 2 cents per enumeration at that time, and a number of the great people like Washington and Jefferson were left off the first census.
Huh, really?
But we're trying to do a better job every year, and each year the government has asked more questions. Most of the original census are on film, and you can get films through various libraries or through the government, which has a program for lending them through your public library. And then you order one for a place where you know you had an ancestor and go to work. There are, of course, indices today to be used that are helpful to us and make the business a lot quicker than just poring over the long lists.
Sure. Judith, I would imagine a lot of folks do see, the census as a nuisance and something they don't sort of want to be part of.
Right.
I mean, one of the reasons why you're here is to say that there is a real importance to filling this thing out accurately.
Right. Well, it's wonderful because this is a snapshot of a family or a household at a particular period in time. And when you look back and you're trying to find your family, it's a great thrill, even with the indexes that Dorothy just mentioned, to put on that microfilm reel and to see your grandparents. For most of us now, we can find grandparents, great-grandparents on a microfilm reel. You could look at everybody in that family, and it's just a real thrill. You see the occupations of everybody there. You may see how many children the mother had, how many are still living, and there might even be a surprise that she might have had more children than you knew about. Things turn up in this census.
All the skeletons come out of the closet.
They really do.
Yeah. But how would someone who hasn't really had much contact with their family history or thought much about looking at it, who's decided to do that, how do they go about the process? How does that begin? How should they begin?
Well, you begin with yourself, always, and then add as much family information as you can get in your own household. You check with the oldest members of your family that are still living and see what they can tell you. And sometimes they tell you lots of legends and stories that are best to be checked out. But in order to actually find the factual information about people, you can go to the census, and probably the one closest to you that's available, which is 1910 right now, is going to give your family in that time period and give you some idea where the parents came from, because it will give the parents' place of birth as well as your own parents' place of birth.
It's important to point out that access to the census is, 72 years back? Is that information being released
For
now?
privacy reasons. I mean, the census takers assure you that it's confidential, and it really is confidential. But in 72 years, I guess they think that it's okay to, that you're not going to mind if you're over 72 years of age, if somebody knows how old you are, that kind of thing. So there's a 72-year gap, and the 1920 census will be available pretty soon in 1992, and all family historians are waiting with bated breath for that marvelous day to come.